To welcome everybody to another one of our Fabric webinars. Today we're going to be talking specifically about the challenges, and we're very excited today because, as some of you may know, we've already launched our first round of challenges for Fabric. Before we start, I would also like to acknowledge our amazing founding partners who supported us in helping to make Fabric happen, and also, of course, to ISED for their support and funding of Fabric as we move forward here today. So also just a few housekeeping items before we start. I want to remind everybody that the webinar is being recorded, and so is the chat. So please be mindful of that. I'd like to encourage you to enter your questions into the chat function. We won't be answering questions during the presentation just to make sure we have time to cover everything, but we are leaving about 30 minutes for Q&A at the end of the presentation. If I don't have time to answer all of the questions here today, we will be posting the answers in our FAQ section of the website. So again, please put them directly into the chat. So the session today is intended to provide you with a brief overview of Fabric, but we will be spending most of our time today talking about the round one challenges, how to apply for a challenge, an overview of the requirements and the eligibility criteria for round one, and the selection process itself, and then we'll open the floor to questions. Next slide. So I'll start today with a quick review of what Fabric is and why we're running the program. Fabric is, again, a 5-year, $223 million project to secure Canada's future in semiconductors. Fabric is funded by ISED through its Strategic Innovation Fund with up to $120 million in total funding, and it's being led, of course, by CMC Microsystems. The program is in response to the major shifts in the semiconductor landscape over the past few years, including push by governments to regain their national positions in semiconductor development and fabrication, including the US and European Chips Acts. And there are big opportunities for Canada to participate. Fabric is a strategic investment focusing on the key areas of technology where Canada already has existing strengths and global recognition, including photonics, micro electromechanical systems, or MEMS, compound semiconductors, and quantum and superconducting technologies. So our purpose with Fabric is to lower the barriers for companies who are developing and commercializing semiconductor manufacturing processes in Canada, as well as for companies who are developing semiconductor products for the global semiconductor market. And we'll also build a national semiconductor ecosystem that is really focused on fostering collaboration between industry, not-for-profits, academics, and government. So that's just an overview of what Fabric's all about. So how do you become a Fabric member? So I'm hoping that many of you have already become a Fabric member. The member registration has been open on the website. Again, I would encourage you to go there, www.fabricinnovation.ca. We are offering 2 different types of memberships into Fabric. Our ecosystem membership is open to organizations and individuals in Canada, including professionals, industry, academics, government, really anyone who has interest in the sector, and there is no cost to join. There might be some fees to access some of the services and to participate in training and events, but these will be discounted for members, again, with the generous support of ISED funding. The second type of membership is the academic subscriptions, and these are the paid subscriptions that are available to academics and their students in Canadian post-secondary institutions. The subscriptions provide access to CAD tools, fabrication services, and other tools through the innovation platform. And this is really building on how CMC has been supporting academics for a number of years now. What do you get for becoming a member? Well, you get access to the members registry, and this is exclusive access. The members portal is a secure part of our website. The members registry is really the who's who of the ecosystem. You also have access to the IP registry and the repository, and I'm going to be speaking about that in a minute. We will also get access to our quantum computing support services, the challenge project applications and related resources, and any technical or fabrication support services for the challenges, and a lot more. So again, I encourage you to check out the website to become a member. So Fabric does have 3 main elements to the program. We have the innovation platform, the challenge projects, and ecosystem development. And just briefly to remind people of what the innovation platform is all about, The innovation platform provides the tools, technical resources, and training to create a sustainable pipeline of critical talent in Canada, to accelerate product development, technology development, and adoption, and also to support world-class research in Canada. Academic subscribers and their students in post-secondary institutions in Canada get access to heavily discounted state-of-the-art semiconductor CAD tools, including things like Cadence, Synopsys, ANSYS, and others. Through the Fab services, academics and their students get training to subsidized access to advanced semiconductor fabrication services, including fabs in Canada like C2MI, as well as our international partners like Global Foundries and AMF. Again, a large number of fabrication partners are available that cover quite a range of technology offerings. So this gives academics and students a hands-on experience in designing semiconductor devices and chips, and also to fabricate and test their designs to support their research, but more importantly, to also secure a pipeline of highly qualified personnel by providing industry-relevant skills development opportunities for these students. The innovation platform also offers intensive training, upskilling resources as well, workshops and webinars related to semiconductor technologies, products, process development, and so on for education and information. We also have our quantum computing program, which provides SMEs, startups, and academics with access to Canadian quantum computing infrastructure, as well as technical assistance for quantum-based algorithm development and prototyping. And finally, Fabric members have access to the Fabric IP repository. And again, this repository contains what we call the leave behind or community resources that are created. Some of them are created by the Fabric technical team, and we are also hoping that there will be contributions by Fabric ecosystem members as well. And it includes resources, things like IP blocks, code, process design kits, and other methods and resources that are really intended to help accelerate product development and new technology adoption in the ecosystem. So I'm going to talk now about the Fabric Challenge projects. And again, our projects are similar to challenges that are led by other ICED initiatives, the innovation clusters, as well as other Stream 5 networks. You might be familiar with some of these challenges that have been called by our friends at NGen, Digital, Secure, or Scale AI, and so on and so forth. Our Fabric Challenge projects are open to Canadian industry and academics who are developing the next generation of made in Canada semiconductor fabrication processes and semiconductor products. In the fabrication challenges, we're going to support organizations that are going to develop and install new specialized processes for rapid prototyping, as well as low to medium volume manufacturing in photonics, MEMS, compound semiconductors, and quantum and superconducting technologies. The challenges will leverage and expand existing fabrication capabilities and infrastructure in Canada, both in industry as well as in academia. And the intent here is to grow critical supply chains for the development of manufacturing of new and innovative products in Canada. The second stream of challenges is the IoT Product Development Challenge. And here we're providing funding to Canadian companies and academics for the design, development, and commercialization of novel advanced sensors and other semiconductor products in Canada, which are really targeted towards the rapidly growing IoT market, with the intent here of increasing Canadian semiconductor content in applications in clean tech, electrified vehicles, 5 and 6G telecom, healthcare, agritech, advanced manufacturing, mining, and other strategically important sectors in Canada. So who can apply for challenges? Well, applicants must be members of Fabric and only organizations. Individuals are not able to apply for challenges, but again, open to companies, institutions, corporations. The challenges are open to organizations that are incorporated or registered in Canada and have a significant operation in Canada. And that includes for-profit organizations, not-for-profits, post-secondary institutions in Canada, research institutes in Canada that are wholly owned by post-secondary institutes, and Indigenous organizations in Canada as well. So round one challenges are now open as of September 3rd. We've published the challenge project guides for this round, and these are now available on our website, but I'll review some of the information that are contained in these guides at this time. So let's talk about the individual project's eligibility. And this is across both of the project streams. It applies both to the IoT projects as well as the semiconductor fabrication projects as well. For this particular round, we're looking for projects that have total eligible project expenses between $200,000 and $2.5 million Canadian. The projects are expected to have a duration somewhere between 12 and 24 months, so they need to be substantial projects. But all projects need to be completed no later than December 31st, 2026. It's important that you demonstrate that you have the sufficient resources to actually carry out the project to the conclusion. And also you need to demonstrate that you have an actual need for funding. So large multinationals that are just, have boatloads of money may not necessarily qualify based on their funding need. But that doesn't necessarily exclude them, but we would potentially be scaling funding accordingly. Projects have to be incremental to your regular business, not already approved or in progress. And these projects would not necessarily have been undertaken at the same scope or scale without the support of Fabric. So these are things that you're going to need to demonstrate. All project work must be performed in Canada. There might be circumstances where there might be some work that may be performed outside of Canada, but that will be limited to a maximum of 10% and will be required to be pre-approved in order to do that. Ownership of all IP that is generated by ultimate recipients through funding for their challenge calls has to remain in Canada and be used for the benefit of Canada for a minimum of 5 years after the completion of the project. You also need to demonstrate that there are other benefits to Canada. So think about social, environmental, and economic benefits, for example. Also, we're looking for projects that have some advancement with respect to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just a note here, experimental or theoretical work will not be considered. There needs to be a path for commercialization for this particular round. So I'm now going to talk about each of the different challenges, like the two different challenges that we're running right now on the calls, and talk about the specific requirements for both semiconductor fabrication as well as the IoT. And we'll start with the fabrication process development challenges. Again, these are calls for industry and academics to develop new or enhance existing processes for prototyping or low to medium volume production for products in Canada. They need to be aligned with our strategic objectives, and we have 9 of those. And in particular, for the semiconductor fab challenges, we're looking at projects that will develop widely accessible semiconductor fabrication capability and capacity in our core technology areas. Projects that will strengthen and deepen Canada's supply chain for design, prototyping, and manufacturing, particularly for IoT products in Canada. And also projects that will enhance our national security and resiliency, oh my goodness, in the supply of critical semiconductor products in Canada. I just wanted to talk briefly about the challenge support. And so for the fabrication process challenges, our fabrication support, which is funded by ISET, is really about providing support to accelerate the adoption by the ecosystem of the processes that are actually developed through the fabrication challenges. And so with the agreement of the lead organizations, the Fabric technical team may produce design kits and design tools, so things like process design kits, flows, and whatnot, for use by Fabric members through the IP repository. The resources will be developed based on the priorities that are established by the Fabric Advisory Committee, which I'll talk about later on, and more about these support things will be discussed at later times as well. So the eligibility criteria are summarized in the guide, but I'm just going to go through a few of them here. Again, we're looking for projects that would develop new or enhance existing processes for fabrication. In this particular call, we're looking for areas of photonics, MEMS, and quantum and superconducting fabrication technologies. We're looking for projects that will leverage and expand existing Canadian fabrication capabilities and infrastructure. And again, both in academia as well as in industry. And collaboration here is encouraged between fabrication partners. We're looking for projects that will contribute to the development and growth of a coherent supply chains for Canadian product developers, and will contribute to the development and retention of highly qualified personnel in Canada, which includes job creation and job retention. And finally, we're looking for projects that have evidence of market pull at the time of the proposal. And we're also looking for projects that will be at a TRL 7 level at the end of the project, with the intent of providing commercial access to the Canadian ecosystem at that time. For the IoT product development challenges, we're looking for calls to Canadian industry and academics for the design, development, and commercialization of novel advanced sensors and other semiconductor products targeted at the rapidly growing IoT market. The challenges are really intended to stimulate and accelerate product development activities and to increase Canadian content in sectors of strategic importance to Canada. And again, aligned with our strategic objectives, the challenges are intended to foster the growth and expansion of companies developing and commercializing advanced sensors and other semiconductor products and services for the Canadian IoT market. We're looking to create Canadian intellectual property and commercialize this IP for the benefit of Canada, and again, to enhance national security and resiliency in the supply of critical semiconductor products and technologies in Canada. So again, through Fabric, we'll also be running challenge support activities for the IoT projects. And in this case, upon request, Fabric will provide technical and logistic support for fabrication of prototypes during the project. Leveraging what we call the multi-project wafer technology, prototypes will be included in multi-project wafer runs that are coordinated by CMC Microsystems. And this will provide access to a broad offering of semiconductor fabrication technologies at affordable costs to those applicants that are interested in participating. So what are the eligibility criteria for the IoT projects? Again, we're looking for the development of novel advanced sensors and other semiconductor products targeted at the IoT market in these key areas. So again, electrified vehicles, clean tech and clean energy, agri-food, agri-tech, healthcare, biotech, digital technologies, including edge AI, 5-6G, datacom, and so on, advanced manufacturing, and future natural resources, which includes areas like mining and whatnot. Again, we're looking for a clear path to commercialization as well. We're hoping that the recipients will be able to leverage new or existing Canadian fabrication capabilities in Canada. And again, collaboration with Canadian fab partners is encouraged here. We're looking for projects that will also contribute to the development and retention of HQP in Canada, and that includes job creation and retention. And again, evidence of market pull at the time of the proposal. So we're looking for a decent business case in terms of what your project is going to do. And we are also looking for products that will be at a TRL 6 at the end of the project with the intent of commercialization following the project. So in this, in all rounds, actually, the funding that's available is in the form of non-repayable reimbursements for eligible project expenses, and they're based on what we call a sharing ratio. And those project reimbursements are done on a quarterly basis. You will have to be submitting claims on a quarterly basis in order to receive that funding. Advance payments may be requested. I know that some smaller organizations may have cash flow issues, so ISED does allow advance payments. There may also be holdbacks that apply to that. For this particular round for the semiconductor fabrication process development challenges, the total funding for this round is being limited to $5.5 million with an average sharing ratio of 40%. So what that means is that we are going to have a pool potentially of projects that are going to come forward, and we might select several of those projects to move forward. However, the overall average of the funding, some of them might have more than 40, some of them might have less than 40% reimbursement. But on average, that entire pool of projects will have a sharing ratio of 40%. For the IoT product development challenges, the total funding is $4.3 million for this round. And in this case, the average sharing ratio for the pool of those projects will be held at 37%. So where is the remaining 60 or 63% of funding coming from? We're looking for the leads to have co-investments. And again, part of these would be coming from the contributions from the leads themselves. That would include contributions from their operating activities. You'll also have the contributions from Fabric, which would be based on the sharing ratio and, of course, your demonstrated need as well. And we're also looking for contributions from other funding sources. So here we'd be encouraging you to seek provincial funding, other federal funding, including SHRED funding, and municipal funding as well. In all cases, stacking rules do apply. And so for industry, no more than 75% of the funding is allowed to come from all government sources combined. And of course, with academics, no more than 100% of funding can come from all government sources combined. And just as a note here, in-kind contributions are not eligible to be considered in the co-investment guidelines. Okay, so what is the process for projects to be selected? I'm going to go through this in a little bit of detail. I'm going to stay on this slide for a few minutes, but there are 6 steps to our process. We start off with the challenge calls, which of course was held on September the 3rd, followed by the EOI submissions, the EOI screening process, then move on to the full project proposal, the project review and scoring, and finally the project selection and final approval. So the EOI templates, as I said, have already been published, as well as the challenge guidelines for this round. Leads are required to complete the EOI template, and it is in a Word format, so you can just type into it and submit the completed EOI before the deadline. The Fabric Challenge team will then be responsible for reviewing these EOIs to ensure that the proposals meet the basic eligibility requirements that are provided in the challenge guide. So a lot of detail is provided in those guides. So this includes the eligibility of the applicant. There needs to be a minimum of 1 recipient who is a SME, where that's feasible. M&Es are not eligible to participate in the IoT challenges, but they are eligible to participate in the semiconductor fabrication challenges. The project has to be aligned with Fabric objectives. There has to be evidence of sufficient working capital and other resources within your organization to demonstrate that you can actually carry out the project. And the project needs to meet the eligibility requirements that are specific to the call. And in this case, the funding structure, the overall budget, the project start and end dates, and so on and so forth. Once the EOIs are in and screened, and they will be screened as they come in. So again, I encourage you to submit them as soon as possible, because then you'll get feedback and notification as to whether or not you've been successful. Successful applicants will be then invited to submit a full project proposal with more details about the project, which includes a detailed work plan, providing descriptions of the project activities and milestones, a budget with a forecasted breakdown of project expenses, revenue and funding by period, and financial statements, which will provide evidence of the viability and your ability to fund the project. We'll next move over to the step 5, which is the project review and scoring. So all project proposals will be subject to an independent assessment process undertaken by a group that we call the Fabric Advisory Committee, or the FAC. This group of independent recognized Canadian experts comes from the different technology areas that we're focusing on. And they also oversee the Fabric Challenge Committees, which is a pool of up to 50 independent experts, again, from each of the key fabric technology areas, again, including members from industry, including SMEs, M&Es, and not-for-profits, as well as from academia all across Canada. The FACs will select up to 5 members from the challenge committees to form an expert assessment panel to review, score, and rank the submitted project proposals using specified criteria and scoring. And again, those are outlined in the challenge guides. This expert assessment panel will ensure that the approved projects are of high quality, meet Fabric strategic objectives, and will recommend projects for funding on a fair basis. And based on the challenge committee's ranking, we'll move on to the final selection and approval. And what is available in terms of the funding envelope, the FAC will recommend for final approval the funding of selected projects to the CMC board. The CMC board will not in any way assess or be directly involved in the selection of any projects. Their role is to oversee the process and to make sure that it was carried out in a fair and equitable manner, and to approve the final funding envelope. The Fabric Challenge team will then notify each successful applicant, and we will proceed with that applicant to the development and completion of a project agreement with the lead organizations. Applicants for projects that are not recommended for approval will be notified, and they'll also receive a summary outlining the reasons why they weren't approved, and these applicants may apply for subsequent challenges as well. So next, moving on to the actual selection criteria. We will be scoring these projects, and again, this is detailed in the challenge guide, and the areas that we're looking at are skills, Will the project create or retain jobs in Canada and or train highly qualified personnel? In terms of IP development, we're looking for projects that will create novel or competitive IP with a plan to exploit this IP for the benefit of Canada. Projects that aim to contribute IP or other tangibles back to the ecosystem for the IP repository will also receive favorable scoring. We're also looking for collaboration, so evidence of any proposal that fosters or demonstrates collaboration between large corporations, SMEs, NFPs, and academia. Commercialization and manufacturing in Canada, so applicants that have differentiated or protectable technology existing or in plan for development, evidence of market pull, again, going back to that business case, and a plan to commercialize. And again, the final thing is the actual basic project structure. So we'll be looking for evidence of need for support. We'll be looking for evidence that you actually have the skills, the resources, and the financial means to carry out the project to completion. Your detailed work plan and budget will be assessed for not only completeness, but for technical viability and feasibility. And then also we, again, will be looking for elements in your proposal that are looking to advance the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So key dates, again, September 3rd was when we announced our round 1 challenge calls. We published our challenge guides and the EOI templates were released. September 20th at 9 p.m. is the deadline for submission for the expressions of interest. And I do encourage you to get those in earlier, because if you are successful, you'll be invited to begin working on your final full project proposal. And October 11th at 9 p.m. is the deadline for submission for full project proposals. So what are the next steps? First of all, become a Fabric member. We had intended to being transparent here, we had intended to put all of the challenge information in the membership portal. So it was behind the portal, you had to log in to get it. But given the fact that we knew that it was taking time for people to become members at this point, we moved all of the challenge information to the public side of the website. So you can pull it down now. You can actually get the template. You can start to do your application for the EOI, and you can submit your EOI. We will not accept the EOI, however, until you have finished your Fabric membership application. So just a reminder that you need to do that. Again, I encourage you to download the EOI templates, the challenge guides, and we've also published the eligible project expense guides, which tells you which expenses are actually eligible for funding and to be included in your budget. And then please don't forget to submit your completed EOI, and you'll be submitting them by email to challenges@fabricinnovation.ca. And the deadline for that, is September 20th at 9 p.m. I had actually turned my phone completely off. My apologies. So the last thing I want to talk about, again, the final element of Fabric is the ecosystem development. Again, we are running a number of ecosystem events that are planned to bring people together from across Canada in the coming year and over the 5 years of the project. I just wanted to highlight that the Canadian Semiconductor Symposium will be held in Markham, Ontario on October 9th and 10th, and information about that is already available on the website. I would encourage you to join us for that. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. And again, here are some of the training events that are coming up as well, just for September, October, November, and much more to come. And you can register for these again on our website at www.fabricinnovation.ca.